Afternoon all. I had an interesting blitz game earlier against an IM, and we reached this position where the IM played g3 attacking my knight. Okay, so the first thought might be to kind of move the knight. This is the threat, and okay, you could look at various options for moving the knight, but I decided to counter-attack to create my own threat, h5. And the queen now went to h4, and again I'm looking at this threat again and thinking, well, my primary concern should be to address the threat. And here is the thing I wanted to discuss in this position, that okay, especially in blitz, you can't always try and find the perfect move. We're not computers. We want to try and win games, and the notion of trying to win a game is not always the same as trying to find the perfect move in every position. Even Magnus Carlsen in the recent candidates tournament we've seen often played less than perfect moves, but which guaranteed him maybe a small advantage which he could often nurture into a win. He didn't have to examine the galaxy of technical complications and find these absolutely razor sharp computer generated moves, even though that would have technically created, huge improvements in his play. And of course other players in the World Championship candidates didn't play the perfect moves all the time, and there were some missed opportunities. But we're not computers. We try and restrict down candidate moves, but there's a bias when you're presented with a threat. There's a bias often that you're not realizing the resources you have in the position. And I think what I wanted to highlight here is that it's particularly ridiculous when the opponent has clear liabilities. If you intuitively assess here that this queen is run out of squares here, it hasn't got this square, and it hasn't got this square because of that previous threat that I've made to the queen. So the idea of are you playing chess to win, or are you playing chess to play perfect moves? And in blitz chess you're often playing just reasonable moves all the time, and you get a success in blitz chess and you think that's fine. And on closer inspection, or if you upload those blitz games to YouTube, you'll get a lot of technical improvements. And this one was really quite shocking for me, that even though I'd ignored the threat the first time, I didn't see what I could play in this one. I was just too concerned with trying to look at these possibilities and evaluate them, looking at knight d3, and then checking out queen e4, double attack, and then thinking, what can I do here? And trying to evaluate also knight e2, and then looking again, trying to evaluate queen e4. It's interesting that this bias of this threat, which I suspended addressing for one move, because I did play the move h5, so I had suspended that threat and was now looking to address the threat. I thought that was the logical thing. That's on the to-do list. It's nagging at me that I must address this threat. Of course, chess is in the practical sense, about winning games. If you won all your games for your local chess club, your teammates or your chess club are not going to look at you terribly because you made inaccurate moves in a number of games, or the opponent missed even mates in one. If you had won those games, in a practical sense, we're rewarded by sloppy, poor chess moves in a lot of contexts, not just blitz, even long games. And when you play higher and higher rated opposition, the need for sometimes more accuracy goes up, but there's always that balance that even in the top echelons of over the board chess, the top grandmasters are not trying to find the perfect moves all the time. If there's a guaranteed way of just getting a small advantage without having to fathom hundreds of different technical possibilities and find this only move, then they'll go for the small advantage and nurture that to the win. So in some senses, this notion of the practical goal of chess is to win, or to play reasonable moves most of the time. But the scientific goal, which is achieved more by engine chess, and that's why they have relatively astronomical tactical strengths compared to humans, is the idea more about finding almost perfect moves in a lot of positions. And when we are presented with a threat in the position, we're conditioned to play a practical response that our primary priority is usually to address the opponent's threat. But then, as I say, it's ridiculous if the opponent in particular has major tactical liabilities. And if we looked at this position objectively, and I even in the live commentary video said about looking for forcing moves, but the forcing moves I was trying to check out, involved attacking things or trying to use F2 for checks here, and it wasn't. It was mainly biased by this threat here. So I'm just wondering, this bias is often useful in some contexts that we're not always interested in perfect moves. But especially, if the opponent has tactical liabilities, then maybe a more ruthless, find the perfect move approach to at least reduce the biases. If the opponent has tactical liabilities, would have found a really good move here. And I guess most of you have seen the move. I'll give you 10 seconds starting from now. So without bias of any threats, what would you play here as black if I gave you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, black can actually ignore completely this threat and just use the benefit of that knight there actually stopping the queen going to h3, and the benefit of that last move as well, stopping the queen going to g4. So these two have been ruled out, and black can simply execute the queen. That's the end of the queen. Knight f5. Where's the queen going? And let's make sure that there's no amazing resources here, just for the record. I'm just gonna just engine check this. Yes, knight f5. Black has to give up the queen. The best move, queen takes f4, is given by the engine. If I just quickly show you here, so queen takes f4. We're talking -5. So it's one of those things, but it probably happens a lot more frequently than we imagine. Even in long games, that we always pursuing the practical and not the theoretical, which is a good thing in many cases. We only have limited time on our clocks. So when we verbalize, oh, the opponent's got a threat, it's like we automatically shrink up our options to addressing the threat, and that's a bias. Biases avoid our ability to play more perfect, more correct chess. So I just thought I'd mention that, and maybe do a more detailed video with other examples in the future, but I thought I'd mention it here because I thought it's quite an interesting point to make. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.